Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash. I can't believe we're in 2025 already, and we have a good one for you today. Our guest today is Jimmy Mackin. He's a brilliant marketing mind and a great asset to the real estate industry, and is on a mission, according to his Instagram profile, to become the most useful person to follow in real estate. So I'm glad to have him on the pod today to discuss marketing, branding in the age of AI. Welcome, Jimmy.
I'm thrilled to be here, my friend. As always, it's good to see you. And I know we are living through such an exciting time right now in real estate. And I think we're at the beginning of something really special. So I'm excited to share some insight with your audience and have a conversation about AI and marketing.
Yeah, can't wait. So I don't think there's anybody listening to this show, Jimmy, that doesn't know you. But for the one or two people that don't know Jimmy Mackin, could you just sort of walk us through your journey and how you got us to today? Just a little of the backstory.
Yeah, so I've been in the real estate industry now for about 15 years. Built a couple companies in the space. Some your audience may be familiar with, like Curator, which I recently just sold my stake in. And I've built my career helping real estate agents get business, whether that's through marketing platforms we built, whether that's through developing professional services, or most recently with our new membership program called Listing Leads, which is the fastest growing membership in real estate history. Everything I've done in my career has really oriented around what I think is one of the hardest things in real estate is getting customers. And so I think deeply all the time about how I can help my this industry and our community, get better at customer acquisition. At the end of the day, it's one of the things that, especially in today's world, this, Rajiv, like it's becoming more complicated, it's becoming more sort of fragmented. So that's really the mission I'm on now, is to really help make agents make that transition digital, and especially in in this AI first world we live in.
Yeah, for sure. I can't believe we are like at the 2-year anniversary of ChatGPT. Just passed it, right? Recently. And then not too long ago announced a ChatGPT Pro version at $200 a pop a month, beyond the 20. It's a lot. The space is going so fast. I feel like AI is growing at an exponential pace, and most of us are used to learning at a linear pace, like the major divide. But I was curious, what was your first aha moment with AI? When was your first my God, this could be big?
Well, the first moment, I have to say, I went from skeptic to believer very quickly. Because, you keep in mind, 2 years ago, we were coming off the back of the crypto NFT craze. We're coming off the back of the SPAC craze. And so everything was the next big thing. We couldn't stop hearing about the blockchain and Web 3.0. So I tried to the best of my ability to have the kind of black lab mentality, be excited about everything. But I was a little bit disenfranchised by all this promise of the future, and nothing was really materializing. So when AI first came out, I thought, okay, this might be an interesting advancement in this technology, but nothing that was really meaningful. But my first aha, as I had a chance to listen to a podcast that my friend and business partner Chris Smith put on, where he unpacked in great detail all of the different practical applications of AI, not in the future, not 6 months from now, but what was happening today. And I text him as soon as I was done listening to that podcast, and I said, dude, I'm like, wow. I'm like, it was just a mic drop moment. And I tell him this already, but I probably would have got to that same conclusion 6 months later. And so he really compressed time for me, and he really got me sold on this idea. And since then, I have just been drinking from the fire hose, obsessed with it. But I've been looking at it through the lens, Rajiv, of the practical application. What can we do now? And then through the lens of how can I use it to streamline my business and get more customers? And that's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, and that's when, for me too, like November 30th, Thanksgiving 2022 was like that weekend. I met with one of my tech friends, entrepreneurs, who was at home eating turkey. He said, Rajiv, you got to check this out. After everybody left, locked myself in. I said, let me check this out. And that Monday on, I've sunk my head into it, and I've never gotten out of it. It's like drinking to the fire hose, like you mentioned. So, and then I went on this journey, Jimmy, that I wanted to make AI approachable and actionable for real estate agents. That's what the genesis of the podcast, the newsletter, the playbook, all of the things that I'm starting to work on, and having wonderful guests like yourself. So let's start with let's talk about some practical applications for real estate agents, right? You're big into marketing, personalized marketing, and that resonates with the target audience. how can AI help agents create more personalized marketing campaigns that could resonate with a target audience?
Well, there's a few things that immediately come to mind, and I think there's one that is probably the one that your audience probably has never heard of or doesn't use or doesn't do that I think will be really useful. So as a marketer who, this year, Rajiv, just for context, I've created now probably close to 300 different campaigns that are
Yeah.
used by thousands of agents, tens of thousands of agents actually. Direct mail, email marketing, ad campaigns, video scripts. I mean, like that's what we do
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah.
And one of the ways in which we use AI daily is I'll use tools like marketingexamples.com and I'll find historical references of great marketing campaigns. And I will upload an image or a sales letter or, a marketing piece from another industry. And I'll say, adapt this for real estate. And
Yeah.
so just as a creative process, if I see something I like, I'll they call it in advertising building a swipe file. I'll grab that and I'll say, okay, all right, AI, give me a real estate example of this. And without thinking, I'll make a translation of that. So this is a quick pro tip for your audience. Every time you come across a website, you go, man, that's a great website. I want to buy that product. Man, I love that website. I want to hire that person. It doesn't make a difference if it is a real estate or non-real estate business. Take that website, throw it into AI and say, hey, create a version of this for me. And here's some information about myself. So number one would be using it to adapt non-real estate examples to real estate examples. That's a showstopper. Let me give you number two. Number two is something I do every day, which is I have, with AI, you can role play, which is super cool. Yeah. So if you want to have like a sales call with it, our mutual friend, Tom Ferry, has built this amazing role play app within his company. It's mind blowing. You can use AI to role play, which is awesome. And what's really cool is I like to have AI play the role of Mark Davidson. And so for those of you who don't know, Mark Davidson is a mentor of mine, a dear friend. He's been part of 1000 Watt Consulting for forever. Him and Brian Barrero, they've done an amazing job. And so if I call Mark up, I pitch him an idea, he immediately gives me a ton of feedback, whether he likes it, doesn't like it, and why.
Yeah.
And so I can't bother Mark every 10 minutes because I got ideas every 10 minutes. So I use AI to say, here's an email that I wrote, grade this email. And I let it just sort of like provide a score of that email. And then I'll say, okay, based on the grade that you just gave, what are the areas in which I can improve it for clarity, for persuasiveness? And then instantly that marketing message that could be going out to 10,000 people just got 50% better. Yeah. That one little step. So I think it's a combination of like using it as inspiration and then also a combination of using it as a kind of like your mentor in a box kind of cool.
Yeah. That's such great pro tips. One of the things we did, Jimmy, not too long ago was we looked at email campaigns, whether we did it or outside the industry that you read about. And we took the subject line, the copy, and open rates that we have access to, obviously, that the stuff we've done that are really resonated well. And we fed it into ChatGPT for it to learn. To your point, examples provide good context, and examples are the ones that are really driving the message, and the output is going to be astronomically different if you do that. So, so that's great stuff. And so the next one is storytelling. I mean, you're a big storyteller. I mean, I've seen recently we were in Boston. And I've heard you a few times. So, what role do you think? And coming back to Mark Davidson and Brian Burrow, by the way, earlier in January, the New Year's Day episode is a podcast with Brian Burrow. With real estate. So that's it. And I love those two guys and what they've done with 1000 Watt. What role do you think AI plays in storytelling and content creation?
Well, it's being dramatically transformed as we speak right now. And a great example of this in a practical use case is a company called Loom, which does screen share, right? So you can basically record your screen and provide information. What I love about what Loom has done is Loom is, and this is a great use of AI, by the way. Let's say, as an example, I wanted to provide internal training for my team, like about how to do a specific function, right? And and if you're training new agents or you're training new staff members, you have to do this all the time. And keeping that stuff up to date is incredibly difficult. So what Loom does is Loom allows you to record your screen, and it will transcribe that entire message, and it will take that transcription and turn it into a series of steps that can become part of your eternal wiki. And it's like you're looking going, this is the future. Like, you don't no more like someone spending hours documenting, click this button, click that button. No, it's just all done through video and through AI. So coming back to storytelling, I think what's interesting about the use case of AI and storytelling is that, what in my experience when it comes to marketing, AI is only as good as the inputs. If your inputs aren't good, your outputs won't be any good. And so I think when it comes to storytelling, the stories that we tell through our marketing depend on the medium in which our marketing is being, distributed. So I could tell a story in a 30-second or 60-second Instagram reel, or I could tell a story in a 12-minute YouTube video, or I could tell a story in a sale. Like, I'll give you a great example of using storytelling. We just did this direct mail piece for my buddy Scott Segment, who's doing he's doing circle prospecting, and so he gives me this background. He goes, Jimmy, I helped my buyer find a home that was on the market for 120 days. They didn't want to see the house, right? It's been on the market for 120 days. They didn't want to see the house. I, as an agent, knew they would like the house because I knew what they were looking for. I got them to show up. They fell in love with the house. We sort of talked about how they could fix it up, and they put an offer in. They purchased the house in 31 days, right? So this home that was stagnant, right, that no one wanted to look at, he helped facilitate. So he goes, I want to create a direct mail piece around this. And so think about this. This is circle prospecting with a buyer, not a sale. And so this is how AI played the role of storytelling. We went to AI and said, listen, here's the facts. This is the home. This is the situation. This is what happened. Okay, we want to create a sales letter, sales story that explains and demonstrates why Scott is an unlike every other agent and who's proactive. And an AI takes this really beautiful narrative approach to writing the letter and creates what I think is a very simple, very straightforward story around how Scott was able to sell the house. Now, let me just read it to you because I have it right here in front of me. It opens up. And by the way, this was 100% written by AI. Okay. So with some prompting, 100% written by AI. It says, Dear Rajiv, not every home sells quickly. Great hook. Take your neighbor's property at 2653 East Canyon Drive. It was on the market for 149 days without much interest. My buyer wasn't initially drawn to it, but I saw potential that wasn't obvious online. After touring the home and working closely with the listing agent, I helped my buyer see the true potential of the value of the home. Together, we crafted an offer. Everyone was happy with it, and the home closed within 31 days. I share this with you because it highlights the difference between agents who wait for buyers to show up and those like me who actively market and negotiate to make things happen. This sale not only demonstrates the importance of strategy, but also reflects a shift in your local market. To help everyone in the neighborhood stay informed about their home's value, I'm putting together a professional home value report. Can I prepare one for your home? Now, that is a fantastic letter that was created 100% through AI. So coming back to your original question on storytelling, if you give it the raw ingredients and you give it your desired outcome and you tell it the sort of medium in which you're going to be distributing this marketing message, it can produce something that you're going to be very happy with.
Yeah.
Or you can just keep doing just sold. Like that's an option, right? Like what are we talking about here? So that's
exactly. Just so example. Don't care for me. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And the point you make is such a good one because for most of the time, I think initially most of the agents are at a point where they think the AI is just an assistant. But the last two examples you've given is if you treat AI as a strategist, I mean, you're only limited by your imagination with AI, right? So I think there's a lot there that people can unpack and tell. And most you talk to a lot of agents around the country, and most agents are not storytellers. They're not good copywriters. Neither am I to a great extent, but AI really gives me that intelligence on demand that I could tap into and become powered up in those areas. So in the age of AI, I mean, you probably see posts, social posts, you're big on Instagram. There is probably generic AI. You can simply call it out when you see the post. It's AI generated. Versus ones like you've read that unless you tell it, you don't know it's AI because people have sort of mastered a little bit of the skill. And in my talks that I do, Jimmy, I talk about there will be a separation season with AI. And the way you know you're doing AI well is nobody knows it's AI. And it's a good message, right? How do you draw the balance so you don't completely do AI, but have the human element? You touched on it, but maybe you want to articulate that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Generic AI. What we're going to see, there's a lot of people in the space right now who are writing some pretty large checks, who have some conviction around the investments they're making, and they're talking about this concept of verticalization, vertical AI, which is saying that we now are using the kind of call it the Microsoft Excel product of the 1980s.
Yeah.
That's what ChatGPT is today. I mean, it's a general purpose product that is going to be used by billions of people to kind of perform general purpose tasks. But just like the sort of the advent of software as a service, SaaS, in our industry, we saw software become very verticalized and very specialized. So there isn't this like one CRM. There are 1,000 CRMs that are deeply specialized. Even within our own industry, we got 25 different CRMs that do 25 different things, sort of. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see the verticalization of AI, just like you saw the verticalization of software. We'll see deep specialization from software companies that just build specific products specifically for real estate agents. So you're seeing that already with like a company that's been on my radar, a guy who runs a company called Shiloh. And what they do is they essentially connect to your Follow Up Boss account. They analyze, shout out to Levi Rogers, who is investor in this business. They analyze your calls, and they basically provide recommendations on what you did well versus what you didn't do well.
Yeah.
And they kind of roll that up into some really practical insight. Now, they built it for the real estate industry, for real estate agents, because the sales skills and the sales scripts that we use in real estate are fundamentally different than the sales skills you might use in insurance or in mortgage, or if you're selling, insert any other kind of category. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and we should get excited about that. I mean, ChatGPT was proving to the world that there's a real meaningful business behind this. Now you're seeing a sprint towards verticalization, which will only benefit the everyday agent.
Yeah, for sure. The more comfortable you get with AI, you can embrace these tools that are verticalized. That I think, and I can talk to you all day, man. With all this stuff, but we got to wrap it up pretty soon here because I want to ask you a couple of questions, Jimmy, that I ask all my guests. If you were an agent starting 2025 and you've made a commitment to kind of grow your career, what is the one piece of advice you'd give that agents listening to this podcast can embrace?
So let's imagine for the second, Rajiv, that this agent doesn't have a big budget, doesn't have a big database, doesn't come from a family of real estate agents who they can rely on, and they are having to figure out a way to carve out their niche in their own world. Without a shadow of a doubt, I am becoming obsessed with content creation. Now, this means, and there are certain skills you're going to develop, storytelling being one of them, right? You're becoming very comfortable with the platforms. People always ask me, how do you become comfortable with social media? It's called Google, right? Like, there's plenty of training out there. I mean, like
YouTube, yeah.
YouTube. I mean, like that's how you get, like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, right? It's like, I mean, there is just there. So this idea though, and this is the reason why, is that unlike other forms of marketing, content creation and social media is the greatest marketing channel in the history of marketing. It is the cheapest way to acquire new customers. And that's the ballgame that we're in, keeping our customer acquisition costs related. You can go buy leads. You can go spend a bunch of money on Google and Facebook. You can pay these profit-crushing referral fees that these portals are charging you. Or you can invest in yourself and your own brand. And by doing so, what's different about today than maybe 20 years ago is when you invest in these channels that scale, like IG, like YouTube, even like email marketing, every bit of money you put in, it compounds. So as my Instagram following grows, the results I get from every post, every story, every reel improves. I mean, that if you can knock on 100 doors and you're just changing time for money, that's it. That's all you're doing all day long. It's linear. But if you want to have this sort of exponential growth that we all are trying to achieve, and we want to spend more time helping people and less time chasing people, I am finding a niche within my market. And now I'll give you some insight here on this. So I know we're running out of time, but just real quickly, we built a tool listing leads. We analyze 15,000 Instagram posts. We looked at 623 of the best creators who are publishing a ton of content, and it falls into like 1 to 5 categories. It's listing videos, and like don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Listing videos drive massive growth for people on social media. Listing videos, community spotlights, focusing on small businesses, new developments, something being built in your area, educational content, right? Or industry news. Those are the 5 things. And you can narrow that down or niche that down based on your area, based on your price point. But if you're producing content around those topics, that is going to drive a lot of attention. That attention becomes influence, that influence becomes opportunities, which then becomes a vehicle for growth in your business. So I am going all in on content creation. I'm making it a priority, and then I'm going to focus on building on top of that, because that is where the future is going, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to get to listing leads, and you touched on it. So we'll include a link to the show notes. Keep up the good work between you and Tom. I know you're just getting started with it. 2025 is a year of growth, obviously. And lastly, last question for you is, I know we watch a lot of listen to a lot of podcasts, and maybe read books, digital, whatever. Is there a book or a podcast that has really shaped you more than others?
There's 50. But if I were to, I know, I'm a big one. me and Rajiv would go on for hours on this. If I go to my Spotify, you see I got 25 subscriptions. I'll give you two that have shaped the way I think about it. Number one, I found this guy maybe 4 years ago, David Senra, Founders Podcast. If you follow me, you're friends with me, I cannot stop recommending him. If you want to get just enthusiasm injected in your veins every day as an entrepreneur, the Founders Podcast, which is David Senra, does a profile of the best founders and the lessons that we learn from them every week. The Founders Podcast, which is a couple hundred episodes, is a must.
100%.
Number two, this is one your audience probably hasn't heard of, but it is Professor Galloway, Scott Galloway, who's been someone who I've followed for many years. I consider him to be a mentor from afar. He has a podcast called Prof G, and he does a show called Markets. And it's talking about business in markets, and talk about how businesses are investing, how their strategy, and I like to get inspiration from outside of real estate. And so understanding, like this week's episode is about a guy who runs a company called MicroStrategy, who took $500 million. Think about it, Berkshire Hathaway did this. Yeah. $500 million of its own money, and he put it all into Bitcoin. and he tells the logic behind why he did that. That was 4 years ago. And so it's just an incredible inspiration for me as someone who's trying to stay ahead of what's happening in business and apply within real estate. So Prof G Markets and Founders, those are my two go-to.
Yeah, Founders are on my playlist all the time, and Prof G, I'm going to definitely add it based on your suggestions. So Jimmy, I know how busy you are. I appreciate your time. This has been fun, and can't wait to do this again with you soon. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. February 20th coming up soon. We're going to be together in Philadelphia area, and we're going to help a lot of agents get a lot of listings, my friend.
There you go. Can't wait. Take care, Jimmy.